So, what if the skills you use every single day, your real world experience, could actually count towards a tech degree? Well, we're about to dig into a really different approach to higher education, and we're going to do it through the story of Linda Calvin, the new dean of Western Governors University's School of Technology. So, this all starts with a really personal story from the dean herself. She started out on a help desk and climbed her way up, but then her career just stopped. It wasn't because she didn't have the skills. It was what she calls the paper ceiling, that invisible barrier that pops up when you don't have a formal degree. I mean, how many people can relate to that? That experience wasn't just a roadblock for her, it actually became her mission. So let's dive into how she's trying to smash that ceiling by building an education system that rewards what you can do, not just what piece of paper you have. And look, this isn't just one person's story, right? All across the country, you have incredibly skilled people getting passed over for jobs just because they're missing that one specific credential. So the mission here becomes super clear. Let's replace that paper ceiling with a real skills-based path forward. Okay, so how do you actually build a path like that? Well, the answer is to basically flip the whole idea of traditional education on its head. It's about moving from valuing seat time to valuing actual skills. And it's called competency-based education, or CBE for short. Let's break this down, because it's pretty simple. Competency-based education doesn't care if you sat in a lecture hall for 4 months or 4 years. It cares about one thing and one thing only. Can you prove you've mastered the skill? The whole model is built on measuring what you know, not how long it took you to learn it. This chart right here, it makes the difference so clear. On the left, you've got the old model. Time is fixed, everyone moves at the same pace, and learning is kind of all over the place. But on the right, with CBE, learning is the thing that's fixed. You only move on when you prove you know your stuff, which means all that experience you've already got, it finally counts. And this story from Dean Calvin just nails it. A student in a mock interview felt she didn't have experience because she was a manager at a pizza restaurant. And the dean said, wait a minute, you manage schedules, handle angry customers, deliver a product? Those aren't pizza skills. Those are real transferable skills. Leadership, problem solving, you name it. CBE is designed to see that and build on it. Okay, so the philosophy sounds great, but how do you actually make it work day to day? This brings us to the modern technologist. How do you build a curriculum that keeps up with an industry that basically changes every 5 minutes? Well, you have to build a living curriculum. They have this really cool 3-step process to stay on top of things. First, they meet with industry advisory boards twice a year. Second, they have monthly meetings with federal experts from places like NICE and NIST. And third, and this is the wild part, the faculty meets weekly to make adjustments. So this isn't some dusty old textbook. It's an agile, living system that's always evolving. And that constant evolution builds real-world value right into the degree. WGU actually embeds industry certifications into their courses. So to pass the class, you often have to pass the A+ or Security Plus exam. And get this, they even pay for your first 2 tries. That means you graduate with a degree and the exact certs that employers are looking for. On top of that, they've got dual accreditation from the NSA and ABET, which puts their cyber program in the top 5% in the entire country. Now, all of this sounds great in theory, but it brings up a huge question about online learning. I mean, how do you get practical, hands-on experience when there's no physical campus? Yeah, it's a totally fair question. If your classroom is your living room, how do you get that critical experience? How do you, touch stuff and really learn by doing when everything's virtual? Let's start with a number. Just one number. 9,000. That's how many students earn WGU's Cyber Club. And they're not just chatting, they are practicing in offensive and defensive labs every single week. They go on to compete nationally and consistently place in the top 10% of schools. But beyond that, WGU is building this whole ecosystem of virtual internships and micro-internships with actual employers. They're literally creating a virtual proving ground for real-world skills. But, building a great technologist isn't just about the code or the hardware. There's another huge part of this mission, making sure the people who are building our technology actually reflect the people who are using it. And that brings us to this idea of a seat at the table for everyone. Okay, just look at the stat from a study by Accenture and Girls Who Code. It's staggering. 50%, half, of women leave the tech industry by the time they're 35. This shows the problem isn't just about getting people in the door, it's about creating a culture where they actually feel like they can stay and thrive. So why is this happening? Well, the study points to something really specific, a non-inclusive culture, and especially a lack of role models and mentors. It's that old saying, right? You can't be what you can't see. And this is where Dean Calvin's vision really comes into play. For her, this isn't just a social issue, it's an economic one. It's simple. More diverse teams build better products for everyone. And on top of that, creating pathways into tech is one of the most powerful tools we have for economic mobility. So all of this brings us to the big question, right? The bottom line. The philosophy sounds good, the approach seems smart, but does this new model of education actually work in the real world? Let's look at the data. First up, 98%. What is that? That's the satisfaction rate among employers who hire WGU graduates. The folks doing the hiring, they're thrilled with the skills these grads bring to the table. Okay, so employers are hacky. What about the students themselves? How does it impact their lives? Check out this number, $22,200. That's the average salary bump for a graduate within just 2 years of finishing their degree. We were talking about economic mobility? Well, there it is in black and white. This model is delivering a real, tangible return on investment for students. And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What if we've been looking at this whole problem the wrong way? What if the biggest barrier to a great career in tech isn't a lack of talent at all, but simply a lack of access? It's a question that could really change everything about the future of education and work.